Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
The show is a proud media partner for the 11th Annual Media Excellence Awards, which are produced by Access Entertainment in Los Angeles, California. The Media Excellence Awards are recognized as the most influential awards show honoring innovation and leadership in all things mobile entertainment, lifestyle, and technology. For more information on how to submit to these awards, please visit MediaXAwards.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Nathan and Cole from Mero Technologies. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on the show. I think what you guys are doing is actually really innovative, but maybe before we get into all that fun stuff, let's get to know each one of you a little bit better. So Nathan, maybe do you want to start off and give us a little bit of background, and then Cole, I'll let you do that right after?
Yeah, certainly. Good to chat. I'm Nathan, one of the co-founders at Mero, on the business end of things. So my story sort of starts, very, very naturally. I'm from a small town in Alberta, and my family is actually all entrepreneurs. Okay, so I like to say that entrepreneurship sort of runs in the family. They run a retail store in Red Deer, Alberta. Okay. So I grew up with the principles of small business and always making sure that the customers come first and all that. And I think those have been valuable things in our journey up to this point. So after I finished my undergrad, I moved to Ontario. I went to Queen's University to get my master's degree in innovation in Kingston at Queen's. And there I studied business and worked on a lot of different business ideas and a lot of different projects that might end up being something that I sink my teeth into more as it develops. So yeah, that's where I met Cole at Queen's. We met when I was in my innovation program, and we just started working on the business from there.
Very cool. Cole, do you want to give a little bit of background?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Cole McDonald. I founded Mero Technologies with Nathan. I basically got the idea. I lived in Toronto my whole life and kind of in the city. And one of the first jobs I got in the summers of my university studying engineering, also at Queen's, was at a property management company and basically just saw, how the industry works, and actually worked in analytics and analyzed, how cleaners did their jobs basically.
Interesting.
And realized that, a lot of stuff that that's being used for these kinds of metrics was all, pen and paper, logs at the back of the door kind of thing. And a light bulb went off and I said, I think we can, there must be a better way to do this.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So you guys met in school, but how did you guys decide to actually form a company together?
Yeah, so I met Nathan. I was actually just pitching to his class. I needed someone with some business experience.
Okay.
I kind of had a prototype. It was like a 3-inch by 3-inch box that when you waved your hand in front of it, it kind of lit up. We also had one of the local cleaning companies here near the university that was like super interested in the product.
Okay.
So we kind of already had a customer before we already started, and we just started talking to people. And Nathan, I can speak to this as well, as it seemed like everyone we talked to in the industry, loved the idea and saw potential in it.
So how did you guys go out and actually get that kind of first customer before you even had anything built? Like, how did you, you went and talked to them, but how did you just cold call, reach out? Or you mentioned you worked at one of those companies. Like, how did you actually get the first kind of customers on trying out the platform?
It was a lot of cold calling at the beginning.
Okay.
I actually credit a lot of this to one of our early mentors. We did a lot of cold calling just for customer discovery,
Okay.
getting out there, getting on the phone, not even for selling, just to learn a little bit more about what people do.
Okay.
And we were actually surprised how many people were willing to give up some of their time in order to, give us a little more insight and knowledge about the industry, whether that be commercial cleaning, property management. Like since we started, we initially thought that this was going to be a product for commercial cleaners,
Okay.
like Cole mentioned. But as we spoke to more commercial cleaners, we realized that wasn't the right opportunity. They're working on pretty tight budgets, so we ended up going to property managers, and those ended up being our target customer, and we ended up finding the right point there. But just to add on to that, it's really interesting because our product affects so many points in like the supply chain for distribution of washroom materials.
Sure.
We've had interest from all 4 points, from like the people who cut down the trees and make paper, and to the ones distributing it, to the property managers, to the actual cleaners who are using it. So that's really interesting and really cool, and it's been a good exercise in learning some of that logistics and supply chain part of the business.
Sure. No, I think that's great. So walk me through kind of what exactly you guys are kind of helping with, and how does your software kind of actually help these kind of companies and corporations do their job?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. The technology is it's a sensor technology that we created in-house. So what the sensor is doing is measuring the levels of supply in a restroom dispenser. Soap, paper towel, toilet paper, and it's also measuring the number of people going in and out of the restroom for traffic levels. So you're getting a pretty holistic view of the restroom and understanding right down to the granular details of how much supply is left in the dispenser, which, as we found out, has proven to be pretty useful information. So this data is sent to an analytics dashboard where the property manager can see all the historical usage of his supplies, but also he gets insights on his worker performance. So the cleaners that he has on contract, he can see how well they're doing, how long it's taking them to go to a restroom when supplies are needed to be changed, as well as they can see their inventory of stock. And all three of these things are pretty valuable metrics for property managers. One of the big use cases that we're getting here is that property managers are saving significant amounts of supplies, because the way that cleaners do their routine now is that every time that they go into the washroom, they're making a change. They might only go in there once per day. So based on their routine, they have to throw out 30 to 35% of the supplies in that dispenser, because they might only go there once per day. And with our application, they'll get a text message right before the supplies need to be changed, so they can go in there at 5%, and they can be more confident that they're not needing to throw away supplies, because they can go in right just in time cleaning for the future. So that is something that we're showing right now off our early pilots, and it's been a really, really cool insight.
Okay. Have you guys done anything in the hospital market? Because like their supply chain management's got to be, obviously it's not constantly changed every day, but like they must need to know when they need to order new stock. Is that an area you're going to go into eventually?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So one of the pilot customers, we actually have a hospital local here that's willing to test our technology. We have nothing to announce right now, but the health space is really promising, and we're definitely going to be moving into that. We're making a play there soon.
Interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the tech, because how does the sensor kind of work? Like, how would you describe the sensor without being able to, like, people can't really see it obviously on kind of the interview, but they can go to the website and check it out. But like, how does the sensor kind of work, and what's the kind of technology inside of it?
Yeah, so it's basically similar to you notice on a phone when you put it up to your ear, the screen turns off. We use a fairly similar technology, and so our sensors will go inside a building's existing dispensers.
Okay.
And the idea is, it measures, very simply, it measures how much of a certain consumable is left. So we're able to know whether there's 25% of a paper towel roll or toilet paper roll, or whether there's, again, soap as well. Yeah, and the idea with the product too is that consumers or people visiting the washroom, will never know that the dispensers are enabled with our technology.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we really keep in mind when implementing this sort of solution.
Sure, because it's not like a camera, right? Or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, no, it's not at all like a camera. It's very analog. We actually use light, I guess, to...
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, but I just wanted to make that clear. There's not like a little camera.
Yeah, no, it's completely analog. There's nothing but a percentage that's coming from the sensors.
So how did you guys go about actually building kind of the sensors? Did you guys build like an early prototype yourself, or do you have somebody in the hardware space, or how did that kind of come to be?
Yeah, so it was me when I first came up with the idea. I remember I spent my Christmas break downstairs in my parents' basement, and it was the first, I think, running on 2 hours of sleep, a night, just trying to get something down, and it was messy at first.
Sure.
And then eventually, we just kind of iterated from there. I remember our first pilot we had, we were still using parts that I would buy from the electronics store and solder them together and put them in a package, and then, send them off. So, eventually from there we grew and have enough funds to get our own, sensors manufactured at a factory in Canada. And very soon now we're going offshore for manufacturing. So it was really iterative in the process that we took from a prototype, getting it out in the field as quick as possible, and making a few mistakes along the way. But I think that's part of being a startup.
Sure. Do you want to maybe talk about any of those kind of things that you wish you maybe didn't do, kind of especially building a hardware startup?
Yeah, I think it's so hard. A lot of people, when something goes wrong, for example, in an app, you can very quickly just, create a new version and get it sent out to the app store and then update and it works. When there's an issue going on with hardware, you can't quickly, implement a fix across, hundreds or, tens of devices. You got to go back to the drawing board. So one of the things that we had was, it would be so expensive to manufacture a couple of boards and then you'd get them out to the customer. And we had one issue where the batteries just stopped working. I think the battery life was like hours, and we need, something in the months to years.
Sure.
And so it's iterative, it's expensive. But I actually think we took a good step in kind of taking it slow. And thankfully our customers or partners at that time were, very understanding that, sometimes things go wrong and we need, a month or two to figure it out. But now we're in a position where we've got a pretty scalable product.
Interesting. No, I think that's really good advice, right? So how does the actual sensors send data to the app or the actual software?
So we are, completely independent of whatever infrastructure is available at buildings. I think that's very important to us, as, you see IoT security is kind of all the rage right now, and things can go wrong and it can be a point of entry, even though we do have fairly good security on our devices. So we go from the sensors communicate wirelessly to a base station that we have in the building. And then they go up and we actually use a cellular connection to connect to our cloud platform.
Got you. Okay. And then it syncs like a few times throughout the day, or is it kind of always syncing?
Exactly. So it actually depends on how frequently someone uses a washroom. So
sure. Okay. Makes sense.
If it's never used, then it may just do, a couple times a day. If it's used a lot, then it increases in the frequency that the sensors pull information.
Okay. Interesting. So walk me through a little bit about actually getting the software built. Like, did you guys raise some money? Did you self-fund, or like, how did you fund all this? Because building a hardware and software kind of startup is not cheap, as you guys know.
No, it isn't. And to be honest, web stuff was not really our forte. And so
Okay.
we were thankful enough that our university actually gave us a bunch of money just to get going. And they gave us a desk in their office space,
Nice.
which was huge, starting out. And we originally had, a friend of ours build a little proof of concept software platform or web platform for us that was, a graph, and if something went wrong, it would send the text message out.
Right.
And it was good for, just getting the initial sales. I think, cleaners come from a industry that is traditionally non-technical, and a lot of their
Right.
business decisions aren't driven by analytics. They're driven by, who I know, or I've been in this area for 10 years, I'm a name around. So when you come in and say, we can find efficiencies using data, their eyes just light up and to see the possibilities. So, to start off, we really didn't need much. And then eventually, as we grew and raised some funds, we were able to, redesign our platform with scalability in mind. And so now we're just about to release our 1.0 really in January of the new year.
Very cool. So you guys just got into an accelerator, correct? Or walk me through kind of the accelerator process.
Yeah, so we've actually been to a couple of different accelerators.
Sure.
We did one in Berlin, Germany,
Wow.
called hardware.co, and that was actually really valuable because like the level of IoT technology over in Europe is
Sure.
completely on another level. I think they have their telecom networks are completely set up specifically for IoT devices, and I think that is really just leaning to the fact of geography, and a lot of these cities are really close in proximity. The urban environments are very conducive for IoT technology. A lot more people are commuting and on bikes and things like that. I think those are all the initiatives that help the smart city movement. But we're coming along really, really closely in North America. So there's a lot of companies that are building specific networks like LoRa in North America and in Canada, specifically. A lot of the Ontario municipalities are testing some of these LoRa networks. So that's really interesting. And the accelerator that we're joining in the next couple of months is the Creative Destruction Lab through Rotman at the University of Toronto. So
Very cool.
Yes, yeah, the CDL is fairly well recognized. A lot of really good companies have gone through there. So we're really excited to be a part of that network and get some good feedback and guidance for our business as we grow.
Sure. No, that's awesome. So you guys mentioned a few kind of pilots that you guys are running. You kind of mentioned some cold calling, but how else did you guys kind of land some of these, and how have you guys kind of, rolled along with some of this stuff? Because you mentioned some, obviously early on, you had some hardware issues and you redesigned the thing. How is actually the kind of pilot programs kind of gone, and maybe walk us through some of that journey? Because I think that's kind of interesting, and I think really scary for kind of a lot of startups that are looking to kind of maybe actually onboard some people for pilots.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about setting expectations, both
Okay.
positive and negative. So I think
Sure.
you want to make sure that going into pilots, you're setting deliverables for your technology to hit, and those
Right.
deliverables can help convert directly into a contract. Because I think pilots themselves, they're very they're very good. Like proof of proving your technology, proving that things work, but ultimately they're not generating that recurring revenue that all
Right.
startups desire so much. So making sure that those are set out in the beginning and kind of setting the guidelines for that contract process is really important, as well as setting, so if things go wrong, where you're going to be, and having that one-to-one communication and contact with the pilot customer, because they're going to expect you to bring everything through like it's a perfectly perfected technology.
Right.
That might not always be the case. So, just making sure that you're showing up, you're there when they need you. That's also important to make sure things go smoothly.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on something that's interesting. I think it, like, worst case scenario, if something goes wrong, especially early on, well, they just go back to the way they've been doing things the whole time, right? In your guys' case, it was like, well, they would just go into that washroom maybe once a day, like they always have, right? Instead of getting a notification. So worst case is they just keep doing what they've been doing. Best case is it actually saves them time and money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to show that up front, right? Like most of these guys for us it comes back to the dollar saved. If there's really no ROI for these guys, there's not going to be a benefit to adopting technology. So you don't want to be creating tech for the sake of tech. These guys have been in business for a long time. They know what types of products are actually going to deliver value to them. So yeah, you gotta show them right off the bat those cost savings, the time savings, and that's our number one focus with the product and providing value right back to the property managers. A lot of our other products in the market similar to ours, they're saying they're providing value, but really locking in property managers on more expensive refills. That's not what we're here for. We're providing long-term value through data, through analytics, and going to continue to provide them value. So the longer these sensors are installed in a building, the more valuable they get, just with predictive routing and using the benefits of get ready for it. Some machine learning and hopefully getting that underway will help these property managers make better decisions the longer that they have these installed.
Sure. And then I'm assuming that at some point, like if they have many buildings, they'll just kind of have one dashboard that they can kind of dive into their different properties.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of the solution is it's important for these property managers, especially if they're managing, their portfolio spans across North America, to really have a one look kind of metric to see the cleanliness of their building, stocking, and the performance of their cleaning teams. So that's something that we certainly provide to those larger clients.
No, that makes sense. And then I'm assuming it's also helpful, like just even giving employee evaluations, right? Because that if I check the third floor and the third floor is always off, then you can correct that, right?
For sure. And it's great. The tool is not just for, managers to oversee their employees.
Sure.
It provides, that's certainly a piece, and that's something that managers like, that peace of mind that their workers are doing, what they're supposed to be doing. But cleaners are exceedingly happy with this solution as well, because, they don't have to worry about, missing something, or a lot of times an event will come in on the fourth floor and, for example, they won't know about it until they recall. So now they're able to, be dispatched to a certain location and really keep their eyes on the entire building from one place.
No, yeah, that's actually interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. The industry is really interesting because smart building, smart city is really, the conversation is really heating up. Everybody has, sort of a smart city or smart building initiative that they want to get going, but they're not really sure the best way for them to get started with it. I think for us as a startup, it's really important that we communicate the value and get it across, what's the tangible benefit of the product's going to be, because I think they know that some sort of these smart technologies is going to help them, but again, tying it back to exactly what their value is going to be in terms of dollars they're going to get from it, because a lot of these property managers, it's like you go to Oxford, you go to Cadillac Fairview, these guys have very grand facilities. Really, they put their name on the buildings that they're the most proud of, and then for you to be a part of that, you have to really add some significant benefit to them. So for those really great big buildings that are really astounding when you walk into them, those are the types of facilities that we want to leave a mark on it. There's definitely an opportunity because they want to make sure those buildings are keeping up the name, sort of thing.
Okay, interesting. No, I think that makes total sense.
Thanks for listening to Building the Future. This show is heard by more than 1 million people monthly in over 15 markets worldwide, including Silicon Valley. Kevin Horick's guests are leading business owners, successful entrepreneurs, and merchandisers worldwide. Now, your brand has an opportunity to tap into this dedicated and active group of business people who are looking for places to invest and the right opportunities to support. Find out how you can get involved at buildingthefutureshow.com.
So how do you guys kind of monetize the platform then?
Yeah, so it's all based on a subscription model.
Okay.
We charge based on volume per sensor per month.
Okay.
Obviously, things go down with volume significantly for us on the manufacturing side, and we can pass those savings back on to the customer. So a typical implementation for us is at least 500 sensors. So we're talking about like big office buildings, AAA office space, large shopping malls, airports, hospitals.
Sure.
Those large facilities that really make an impact on a community, because you're going to have tons of cleaners in that building at many different times. For a facility manager, they're busy responding to 100 other things on a given day for these places. Renovations, they got rent collection, they're doing their trash removal, and then day to day is the maintenance. So really, we're making maintenance for them the last thing they have to worry about. They know that everything is going to be taken care of with the platform. We really want to reduce those customer calls to the property manager, those angry customer calls saying, hey, there's no supplies, there's no toilet paper on this floor, on the 42nd floor, can you send a cleaner? For us to eliminate those calls, that is like a huge KPI for us. So I think if we can completely eliminate those calls, we'll have done our job, and it makes property managers' lives that much easier.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really actually quite fascinating. So I'm curious, obviously you guys I'm millennial, I'm just a millennial, I'm 35. So just so you have some context, you Nathan, you wrote a piece about kind of in defense of millennials, and I have my thoughts on it and I can share it with maybe after, but I'm curious to know, you wrote a piece like why young and hungry are the best leaders for business. And I'm curious just to kind of maybe share what you talk about in that piece, because I found it quite interesting.
Yeah, of course. No, I'd love to talk about it. I pretty, strong opinions about it. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Well, I love the fact that people just kind of almost like write you off before they even know who you are. It's motivation for me, but it's also, I think, funny in the sense that the bar is set so low for you just by default, right? So like if you make a little bit of effort, people are like, oh my God. And you're like, well, it's not really that different. And I also think there's been kind of highly motivated and completely unmotivated people since the beginning of time. So, I think in every generation that's always been the case and always will be the case. So I think it's just kind of funny in anything. And I think it's great because it's like, sure, pigeonhole, me and other people that are motivated to actually do something in that. That's fine. No big deal.
Yeah, honestly, I totally agree. And I think that's some of the frustration I had when I wanted to write that. I think, the number of times we've sort of been pushed aside or kind of just thought of as an afterthought because, we were just starting our careers, or because we do things maybe a little in a different way, in a new way. It has been countless. If we stopped any time that we had a little bit of adversity, we probably would have stopped like 2 years ago. So, every time that, like, I think personally speaking, every time that, something kind of doesn't go our way, it actually motivates me a little bit more just to push harder and, prove those people wrong. I think that's a little bit of, just what kind of part of my personality to make prove the people wrong that doubt us.
Totally.
And I think you need a little bit of that as an entrepreneur because, and we talked about at the beginning is that like you're really not going to have the answers to most of the questions when you start your business. It's a very the long, like, circuitous path to the destination, and there really is no destination. So as you go through the process and make mistakes and iterate on that. As long as you're taking a couple steps forward and not taking like 3 steps back, it'll all eventually work out.
No, it's interesting. Cole, do you have anything to add to that?
I just, thinking back to what Nathan just said there, I think, the number of times I think just in the startup generally that they know, or especially early on when you're not sure the feasibility of something, and
Sure.
and us being so young too, and going into, we've been in the youngest person in the room, especially in the sales process.
Sure.
I would say 99% of the time, you got to work a little bit harder to be taken seriously. But when people realize, the value that you're providing and the knowledge that you have, it quickly goes away. But I got to say that the first impression sometimes can be difficult to manage.
Yeah, no, and I think it's just like you kind of need to just let it roll off your back. Like I remember a time I was working at the university at the time. This lady said to me, I was 18 at the time. Are you even old enough to have a job? And well, do you want me to just leave and not help you? Attitude. It's like, you called me up to help you. And it's like, if you want to insult me, then fine, but I don't need to help you either. Right. And it's kind of a weird balance sometimes. Right. Or you can just fine, forget it. It doesn't really matter. You can think what you want, but I'll help you and go on my merry way. Right.
Yeah. It's sort of a rite of passage, to be honest. I think no matter where you are, you're going to be at the bottom end of the totem pole when you're starting things out. But I think as an entrepreneur, that's, everyone has this perception that, oh, you're your own boss.
Yeah.
You call the shots, everything, goes the way that you expect it to, but that's really not the case. You're pretty reliant on, on other people's, feedback, on their funding, on, customers coming through for you. So I think, there is a big aspect of, making sure everyone else is happy, and then that'll eventually trickle back to you. It's in these early days, it's, you do anything you can to make things work. It's not until maybe like, you have a really, really fast growing business that, you have a little bit more of those luxuries. But I mean, to us, I think we're happy with the pace that things are going. I think we wouldn't rush anything, because the more you rush to a certain destination, the less you enjoy it on the way. I think that everything for us has come in good timing, and I think they'll continue to go that way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I also think it's interesting too, that if you're kind of an older, person that's been in the industry for a long period of time, you almost don't realize like how much red tape sometimes there is, right? Whereas like a younger person that's maybe never been in the industry that you're trying to break into, well, that's just dumb. Why would you do it like that? Let's just do it this way. And then sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I never really thought of it because of XYZ reason. I don't even know what those reasons are, or like why they exist. So sometimes it's easier to come in the ground up instead of work from the top down, right? So I think just coming into an industry fresh really can benefit people that I think a lot of people don't talk about very much.
I think so, exactly. And I remember one of the first sales meetings we walked into, they said, our margins are so low, like we don't think that we can support this technology. It's just, there's no way. Like we purely are on cleaners, and we pay the labor, and that's it. And but they don't realize that, and we found that these cleaners, maybe in some cases are throwing out so much paper product, and going into washrooms so many more times that they need to, that there's significant savings when you look at it. But cleaning hasn't really changed. I know one of our good friends in the industry says, the biggest advancement that we've had was 10 or 15 years ago when we switched from rags to microfiber cloths, and that was like game changing. So to come in with a technology aspect, it can be hard for some people to grasp, but once you see the savings, you understand the value.
No, that makes sense. I think that's quite interesting, right? And I think just getting better at pitching and selling that, right, to some people that are maybe skeptical, right, and kind of proving them wrong, I think is a big motivation factor as well.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And we actually found early on that, especially when we didn't have too much as a product, and we were still in development, that it would be hard to convince people over the phone of the value of something
Sure.
that they know not too much about. But when you go in there, and I remember we used to make these Photoshop kind of mock-ups of data and technology, and see what kind of things they could achieve, and just looking, their face light up and say, like, we had no idea, like, that you could do something like this. It's been quite interesting.
Sure. Where do you guys go from here? Because I think you could potentially use your technology, and maybe even if you built maybe a couple other pieces of hardware to actually help a lot more in the same kind of types of industries you're already in, and then kind of expand to others. Do you agree with that?
100%. I mean, we certainly have a lot of room to grow in the restroom, for one. We're looking at, tighter integrations with some dispensers. There's some room there, but really, if you look at this technology in a broader sense, we're tracking consumables. And anywhere in the building, there's countless places that people come in contact with on a daily basis, that requires things to be changed out. And we found that with pen and paper logs, or the manual way to do it, it gets missed eventually. There's no it's hard to be perfect, and it's a lot of time just to fill out forms and for accountability and auditing purposes. So that's where we kind of come in and say, on a broader sense, anything that needs to be changed out is something that we can adapt our platform to. And as you said earlier, healthcare is a huge, area and interest for us, even on simple things like hand washing compliance or more complex things. There's tons of consumables at a facility like that.
Yeah, interesting. So how much extra development does it cost you to add in that hardware piece? Because I think sometimes people kind of wonder how complicated in tying physical device into actually a software package. Like, how challenging was that for you?
So I think early on, it's easy to jump to the most complicated conclusion, especially when we were testing our paper product. I was kind of going back and I said, okay, like, this isn't good enough. We need, down to the precise millimeter of how much product is left. When really, people need to know whether it's out or not. And I think, for a lot of, people with engineering or technical backgrounds, I think it's very easy to overcomplicate solutions when you just need something that works, and you reminded of, how much better your solution is than practically nothing.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, and then too, like, the more complex the actual hardware solution is, the bigger battery you need, the more expensive it is. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You're right. I think that's actually really good advice. A lot of people try to build this like elaborate thing, and you may need that, but you may not need that, or at least not a version 1, or maybe a few versions.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And I think that iterative process is really important, especially with hardware. We've purposely gone in, early on, we basically didn't have any features. We had an SMS, thing, or an SMS system that would summon people to a certain location. And, talking with customers very early on and saying, what do you like, what, if I added this, would you use it? Instead of going in with large feature sets and kind of, finding out that they only use 1% of it. And that's the kind of approach that we're taking when we expand outside the restroom as well, is we're starting with things that are, can make little to no modifications to what we have, and collecting feedback. Is this a use to our customers? And what if we added this feature or that feature? Would you use it? And kind of starting small, but iterating quickly.
Sure. So how do you guys mention that you're going to get, or you have gotten kind of overseas, this stuff, the sensors built? how did you guys kind of source a hardware vendor?
That's a great question. We're actually traveling to China tomorrow
Nice.
to kind of figure that out.
Okay.
We worked with some great manufacturing partners in Canada who had some connections to the Chinese market. And
Nice.
as much as it's amazing, I think, to start things off in North America in terms of manufacturing. So right now, all of our stuff is manufactured in Canada.
Sure.
To hit the scale and growth, unfortunately, you have to go overseas for that at this point. So we're in very early relationships with these vendors. I've heard a lot of horror stories. I've heard a lot of amazing things. So we're going in and kind of testing the waters a bit.
Sure. No, that's fair. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I've heard that from a number of people. There's been a big push, especially in America, to try to bring back some manufacturing jobs. But if you need, I don't know, like 100,000 units in 30 days or 60 days, whatever the number is, if there's not a facility in North America to do that, like, what are you going to do? You have to go somewhere else, right? I think, it's not always easy to go kind of North America wide, and the cost too.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think it came to, off the top of my head, it was almost going to be 3 or 4 times as much.
Oh,
keep
wow.
it in. And you know what, there's some great things about, keeping it in North America. Like, it was great for us to be able to tour the factory, and especially early on, when things go wrong, we could literally take a 2-minute drive to the factory and get them to rework a part really quickly. That, you can't do if you go overseas. So I think starting out with us, in the hundreds kind of sensors, it was really amazing to have that closeness and the ability, the constant communication. There was no language barriers or anything like that. But I think as you grow and as you need, the right numbers to scale, you need to go overseas for that.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So you guys have a show coming up kind of at the end of the month. Do you want to talk about that, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, so it's the ISSA show in Dallas this year. So it's the largest janitorials, sanitation trade show in the world. So they hold it every year. Like last year's in Las Vegas, this year in Dallas, and we'll be having our product displayed along with one of our partner booths there. So if anybody's interested in this industry, they can find us there.
And just maybe to close out the show, if you want to maybe just give a quick recap of kind of the technology and then what you guys do, and then close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys.
Sure, yeah. So we're an IoT company providing analytics for commercial property managers. We have a hardware solution that installs into any soap, paper towel, toilet paper, garbage receptacle, and restroom traffic as well. So we're giving a holistic view of restrooms and their supplies, and providing deep insights and analytics on workforce management, inventory management, supply management, all for property managers. And we're starting here in Ontario and the Northeastern United States, but we're moving quickly and I'm going to start expanding pretty widely across the country soon. If you're interested, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Our website is mero.co, mero.co. So you can find all the information you need to there.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you both taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Thanks,
okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.